Alright, so something new for the channel. A first time dead review finally, and specifically Dave's Picks, Volume 31. I know it's backwards. If I remember, I'll try to flip the video, but I mean, I'm just recording this on a Note 9, so I don't know if it has that capability or if I got to download an app just so I can flip it, but hopefully I'll remember. Uh, Kind of a cool background. It's it shows 12/3/79 Uptown Theater in Chicago. I don't know if like what's I think it's like the background's inside of the theater, but I don't get the like kind of Chinese looking dragon. Maybe it was near Chinatown. I don't know. Uh, so let's get to it. 79. I'm familiar with 79, but it's one that I've only listened to maybe two, three shows. Uh, the best one I can really think off the top of my head I listen to every now and then is from the Dick series, Dick's Picks 5, I think it was that one. Oakland Coliseum, day after Christmas, 12/26/79. Solid show, really great fucking show in general. Even for 79, Brent comes out hot in that show. Best He's Gone I've ever heard. My favorite He's Gone in the second set of that show. Uh, but once I ever managed to get to doing into the Dick series, definitely one I'm gonna definitely be real pumped up for. Uh, will want to do the Dave's series as well at some point, all the way from start up to current. But for now, as they come out, I'll just do these. So, uh, definitely a little bit harder to do than Fish, just because Fish is more a little bit current. All the soundboards, are I have all of them from like 03, 04, and then 09 to everything they've done, the present. I haven't downloaded this uh, tour or this year's shows yet, but eventually I will. And with them, they're constantly evolving the sound every year, at least for 3.0 era. Dead evolved sound every year as well, but it's a little bit. It's not as like as big as like, oh, Trey can just do something this year with the rig. Next year he can come and it can be a totally different sound and make a whole new sound for them just off of his shit that he has on his setup and his rigs. Dead and Co don't really change much. I don't know really honestly how much Dead and Co really changes. I don't know if John Mayer really changes his rig out, really does much. I'm guessing that they do, but it's like little minute things that you probably won't. Most people aren't gonna pick up on. Maybe I don't know. Uh, at least for the actual Dead rig wise, as far as Jerry. I mean, I know like Wolfie and Tiger and all the different guitars from different stages of the career, yeah, but as far as the actual rig year to year, just, example 77, 76, 77, 78, 79, I don't know. I, that's something that Mr. Lemieux could easily answer. It's something I would like to find a chance to interview the guy and talk with him. It's definitely some questions I would ask, and that would be one of them in general, in specific, I guess. So, uh, you know, kind of figuring out how I'm doing dead reviews. This being the first one, a little bit of a test run. I kind of have an idea right now, so let's see how this goes. So opener Alabama Getaway, one that I'm not. I know what it is, but it's one that I don't. I would say I don't skip. It's just one that I don't. I feel like it's put out often. And that's one difference that's hard with dead reviews and fish reviews is fish is pretty current. I can do a whole, summer tour from start to finish. And dead, it's, you get a show here, you get a show here. You don't get a full, like, tour. Uh, I mean, even trying to do, like, the 30 trips box set, if I want to do that from start to finish, will be interesting, but it will be a little bit hard because you got different eras and whatnot. I think the dog scratching at the door, but I gotta do this. I don't got time to let the dog in. Sorry, Hannah. Uh, so let's see. For as far as openers, I thought fit well. It's got a good bit of energy in this one to start out with a dead opener. I definitely thought it was better with Brent on keys this time around. I guess it's definitely a band that struck out to me right away with Brent on keys. It's like, wow, this definitely is a little. It's definitely a little, I think, a song that improves because of Brent versus Keith. Not to shit on Keith or anything, but I think it. Uh, I mean, Keith is probably going to be considered the best pianist that they ever had, but I would say Brent personally is my favorite. I mean, it's the closest they get to any sort of sound wise to Fish because it just Brent's organ. I mean, Page has I don't think the same model, but he's got the same sound in some degree in their shows. But so it's a little bit of a blend there between the two, especially for different eras. Um, the I know that the sound more this one had Jerry missing in the solo. I think that's just because it's Dave's picks. It's they can only do so much. These are old ass tapes. This isn't you know technology back then wasn't as great as it was when Fish. Even like 83, 84 Fish starting out compared to 79 Dead and their peak trying to record shows and things like that. So I think that was a more of a mishap in just the tapes themselves than it was that I mean, maybe Jerry was messing with his setup and just missed out on there. But I mean, is what it is. It's still a good spot for an opener for this song, I would say. Segued into Promised Land. Uh, this one had a sudden drop into it right out of Alabama. There really was no tease or anything. It was just a drop right into it. So something a little bit different. Compared to hearing Fish for so long for not and then to hear how Dead do things. I've noticed some differences, especially with segues and Fish aren't one that just they will drop all of a sudden into something, but more so they tend to make it a little bit smoother transition. Dead kind of I feel like tease and drag it out for about half a minute or so. Then they eventually segue into Fire, Scarlet, whatever, Franklin's Howard, whatever they want. Um, this one was just dropped right in, so kind of caught me off guard on this one how sudden it was. It's one that I'm not a big fan of in general. I don't hate it. It's just one that I'm not. It comes on and I'm just like, okay, it's more a filler song for me, I guess, for Dead song repertoire wise. Uh, I did give it an honorable mention because Brent definitely improved a lot better on keys with him involved in the song. Uh, as far as the how I do with Fish, honorable mentions and MVPs, I'm basically just going through song by song for that show, and if it's one that stood out to me, it's either going to be honorable mention or one that I think is a great highlight for that version of that song. Otherwise, as far as overall, like who's the winner of the first set, a little bit trickier for me to do with a Dead show, but I feel like this is a promised land that one that's actually stood out to me and never really does ever. I'm not a big fan of the song, but Brent definitely helped on this one with his part in it. So kudos for Brent MVP to save the song. I guess I don't know how else to put that. Brown Eyed, given MVP for Brown Eyed. Great version, great solo in Brown Eyed. I listened to the show like 3 days ago, and I've been busy just getting to it. So I gotta skim over my notes real quick. Uh, yeah, Jerry and Brent the Soul really did really well together for both of them playing off each other. Jerry just a great solo, but then Brent's keys had a cool part in it to back him up. Um, gave it definitely the sound for this one. Brent's keys gave it a little bit of a punch for this version. I felt like compared to some of the other versions I've heard, mostly 77, 78 versions. I don't think this one had a little bit of punch to it in the song. Uh, I definitely felt like this was overall, I will say this, as far as 79 shows go, the very few I've heard, a lot of higher energy, a lot of great. I mean, Brent really comes out on fire on the keys and just playing all over the thing. Show was a little bit toned down. I felt like, I don't know why, considering it's only the third, and 23 days later you get the Dix 5 show, and that one's just everybody's on fire, and that one playing great and real good tempo, high tempo and stuff. I kind of felt like this was a little bit of a slow down version as far as how 79 in general goes. It's just a slow version. I felt like. Uh, then again, the Dix 5 show was a day after Christmas, just like I think Mr. Lemieux, if you are listening, please, I don't care if you just even if you're gonna do a single, please give me 12/31/77 Lazy Night Lightning Supplication. If you just want to do that as a single, I'll take it. If you want to just release the first, well, technically the first set, but it's the last set of 77, I'll take it. It's probably the most fires first set I've ever heard, even for 77. There's a lot of fire in 77, but um, so trying to get back on track. We got El Paso. Uh, uh, not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna stay with the song. El Paso. Honorable mention in this one. I will say I put Bobby sound confident in this one. It's not that he doesn't sound confident in any of them, but going back to 24, Dave's 24. It's one of my ultimate favorite shows too. One of my earliest 825/72 at Berkeley Theater. Liked El Paso, but this was the one that really got me into El Paso. Um, what I mean, how Bobby sound confident in this one, it's definitely post Donna. Donna's not involved, so there's definitely a couple songs that came out on this show that I haven't really heard without Donna, and I don't think some songs definitely work. Playing in the band doesn't have her doing the banshee screaming. Scarlet doesn't have her doing her yodeling and stuff, which is great. But then you got songs like Cassidy, not in this show, but I know there's other shows that have had a Cassidy, or in this show, Lazy Lightning, Supplication. In this one, Donna not backing Bobby up in the vocals is a little bit missing. So I feel like it makes Bobby sound a little bit more confident in him. I mean, he already is confident. He's probably cocky ass guy back then. As far as like, oh, are you confident in your singing? Well, hell yeah, But uh, compared to not having Donna in it or not, it just to me on this show, Bobby just really sounded confident in any of the stuff he was singing in, whether it was backup or lead. I think El Paso was really, really good for Bobby. One of the best like vocals performances for him in a show. I would say rivals the Dave's 24 El Paso as well. Um, Great harmonies. Not, again, I'm not a musician. I don't know, but everybody coming in the chorus on the vocals. Jerry and Brent, whoever all involved, comes in on the chorus for El Paso. Really hit really well. Was really great. Connection real strong. Connection in this one I felt like compared to usually in El Paso. In the choruses. Jerry definitely had some great chords in this one. Brent as well, definitely coming out and helping. Good tempo for it too, considering it's a little bit of a slower show, but it wasn't too fast, too slow. Just right there in the middle. Um, Number 5, we get Ramble and Rose MVP for this one. Actually, excited to hear this one when it came on. Had a great segue into the solo. Um, you know, had a good second peak too at the end. The chorus part at the end. the reason I was excited for it was just because I don't remember if it would have been the last Dix before this one, Volume 30, or what. I just heard a Ramble and Rose at some point this summer that was really great. So to see this one come up, I was like, oh, I'm excited to see how this one will do for 79. Really solid version. Definitely gonna put it up there. Rose is another one of those, just like with Promised Land and Getaway, or I guess not so much Promised Land, but Getaway, that I'm a little still learning them. I know them, I just don't comparatively how many Dead shows I listen to compared to Fish. Even though if I had to plant my flag in one camp, I'm a Deadhead more so than Fish head. But I listen to Fish more than Dead, so I don't know how that all works out. But uh, so there's definitely some songs I'm still learning, and especially it's not that I don't like '90s Dead or late '80s Dead. I just don't hear a lot of those shows because they don't. A lot of those don't get really released. Um, and then like box sets and things like that. 30 trips, and then just with the new Giants box set, we definitely hear some stuff like that. RFK. So a lot of the later Dead shows don't get released unless they're on box sets. So I do get them. I collect them, but I don't. I haven't really gone into a lot of latter Dead. So there's definitely a lot of latter Dead songs that I don't know. I know them off the set list, but I just haven't heard them or heard them enough to figure them out quite yet. Rose is a little bit like that, but it's definitely one I'm getting into a lot more and figuring it out as I go along. Number 6, It's All Over Now, MVP version for this one. Great bass, really made the chorus pop on this one. Phil really stood out to me on this one. Um, I felt really, really confident in the solo on this one. I think actually, I'm sure I've heard it on another show before, but I feel like if not, then this would have been my first time hearing this one. Pretty good for a first impression. The drums were even good in this one. I really thought Bill and Mickey really stood out in this one, which is hard for me to really point out ever. Bill and Mickey standing out, other than drums and of course. But Brent Souls definitely had me jumping and smiling on this one at work. I wasn't actually jumping, but I mean, it definitely had me goofy smiling and ready to jump for joy on this one. So I was really, clapping for Brent and his little solo. Then at one point, then Jerry answers back, and it just ended up I feel like brought it to a real big full blown jam for me for this version. At one point, I did think it was going to go into another jam, but it just basically they just jammed it out at the end. I don't know if they do that for that song all the time, if that's how it's supposed to be played or not, but definitely a great first impression of a song for me. Um, Next one, Jackaro. Definitely the first time I've heard this one. Seen it thousands of times on setlist. Never really heard it. At my first impression, I didn't hate it, but I was just like, I don't know what to describe it as other than bathroom song, is what I would put. So that's what I put. So then we get Lazy Lightning, Supplication, Lightning, MVP. Definitely not as my all-time favorite. Definitely the 70 or 12/31 71 77 show. Mr. Lemieux, please, can we get a release on that show? Uh, Still great tempo. Definitely because Donna's not in it, I feel like it breathes a little and Bobby's a little more out there without Donna backing him up. But definitely still one that I miss Donna hearing her on. Uh, More so, I would say MVP is really the Supplication than it is Lightning. But I mean, that kind of just, it's basically one whole piece, It's just like China Cat Rider. You kind of, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's like Mike's Groove, You're going to get Mike's song, you're going to get Weekapog, but each one could be in its of itself. Lightning and Supplication, I don't really feel like that. You can't really have them separate. I mean, Supplication is just a jam. It's the whole damn thing's just a jam, but it's the end of Lightning. I guess Helps would be a better example, Slipknot's just a damn jam, but it's the end of Help, but it's still its own entity. But Supplication, was definitely slower compared to what I'm used to. I would describe as more of a mesmerizing, hypnotic type of jam that I got into. Definitely slower, but definitely one that you're still getting lost into. Um, mm, I can't read the last part of my note. I lost my pen, so I had to write with Sharpie. So a lot of this is kind of smeared with the fat tips Sharpie when trying to write with that. Otherwise, MVP, Lightning, more so supplication, but either way, still MVP for this one. We got Althea. Great placement for Althea, I would say. Um, Great placement and great choice for song. It was a lot slower than I like. Definitely had parts that reminded me of the '81 Rock Palace show, which was the show, and Althea from that show was the song that got me figuring out the dead and finally clicking and eventually getting into them and figuring the shit out. So definitely had a little bit of parts that reminded me of the '81 Rock Palace. Jerry still played it strong, just like I said, a little bit. I felt like a little bit slower than some of the '70s, late '70s Altheas I've heard. Uh, Typical encore we get for first set. Music never stops. Music never stopped. Music never stops. MVP for this one. Staple spot definitely a little bit weird without Donna on this one. I felt like I've definitely heard this without Donna. This one kind of felt a little weird to me. It's just been a while. Um, Bob definitely was very good in the jam in this one. He very well stood out for me a lot in this one. Phil's definitely heard in this one. I feel like um, loved the way it dropped into the jam. A little bit more mesmerizing but high tempo sort of jam. Um, with the way the show was playing, I wasn't expecting a peak necessarily from this uh, version, but they did come out and it kept building, building, building at the in the end into the great peak. So nice to know that they had a little bit of a fire song uh, for the show. Definitely one that can't compete against the Dix 5 version. I'm pretty sure it's the Dix 5 version, unless I'm thinking of another '79 version. Moving on, we get second sets. Scarlet opener MVP with this one as well. Had a great groove in this one. Probably one of my favorite grooves in a Scarlet I've heard ever, or at least in a long time. Definitely Phil coming out big with the groove on his end. In the beginning, going into the song part, definitely noticed Donna not in it. Definitely helps that out. Brent fit really well with this song. One of the greater examples of bringing Brent in a song that he really fits in really, really well with. Um, I felt like the sound for this one was really loud and strong compared to a '77 Scarlet. I feel like is a little bit isn't as loud and strong. Still, solid sound, but this I don't know, maybe the soundboard how it was mixed, just whatever. Just this night felt really strong and loud on this one. Started the jam a little bit slow. Jerry and Bob then found each other, and then the drums followed, and everything got really good, really smooth and tranquil at times. Uh, a little bit yin and yang. Even though it was loud and strong, it was still smooth and tranquil. So great version that I know this song is specific for that little yin and yang part in the jam. Uh, Heard Bob teasing the uh, Fire on the Mountain chords a little early, but it's one thing I noticed is I feel like Dead tease songs little bit, for a little bit, and then eventually they move into it. Whereas I feel like with Fish, they don't tease out so long. If they do tease, they might tease it, jam, then start to get into the segue into the next song. These guys kind of just start to slowly, they tease it, then they slowly start moving into the next song. It's a good seamless transition. Definitely MVP for Scarlet. Fire. There was a Fire Dix 18, I think. It's I'm pretty sure I wrote it on here. 2378. Very solid Fire, and I've been listening to that one a lot in the last month. So when Fire came on, I was like, oh, this is going to be 79 Fire. Not giving it an MVP or honorable mention. Wasn't as heavy as Scarlet, but the jam still had a punch. I just was a little bit hung up on the 78 Fire from Dix 18, so I was kind of expecting, hoping this one would step up to that level, but it didn't. Still had a punch in the jam. At one point, the soundboard does drop out, and there's a little bit of a flub in it. Is what it is. These aren't always going to be perfect. I gotta move it along here. We're clocking 25 minutes. Samson and Delilah, typical spot. Nothing special about this one. I mean, I would say at least good placement. You know, to get your Scarlet Fire a little bit of slowdown. Cool down, I guess I should say. Terrapapin gets an MVP. First 79. Terrapapin I've heard ever. Great soul in the first part, and Brent, his keys after the soldier part stood out too. I got his little soul part there really stood out. I like Brent coming in with that one. It definitely sounded like a very seasoned Terrapin. Overall, the show just felt a little bit laid back and like they don't have to prove shit. You know, I felt like they played a little bit slower, but very confident in that they're veterans and they know what they're doing. And Terrapin was really a great example of the sound it had for this version was very veteran Terrapin like. It wasn't anything fast. It wasn't anything crazy like a 77 or 78. Just very strong, and it knows what it needs to do, and it does it well. Uh, this definitely was one of the more unique Terrapins I've heard. A lot of it because of Brent and his keys. You know, being involved in it compared to Keith. Yeah, slower on the Terrapin build up at the end. Little bit disappointing on that one. I felt like really was hoping that they would really hit that build up in the Terrapin part at the end and just come out. But it was a slower night, slower show, slower soundboard. So a little bit disappointing on me for that end, but oh well. Still a great, unique version of Terrapin. Playing in the band felt a little bit slow. Again, most of this whole show was slow, I felt like in general. I think at one point, I don't know, I noticed the soundboard felt really quiet and Jerry just didn't stand out. I don't know if the soundboard's okay and it's just that's how it just came out at the show, or if it had something to do with the soundboard and that was the best they could do. I don't know. Drums into space, drums in space, drums are drums. All I can say is on a soundboard, I don't think many people listen to it unless you were there at the show and it's a nostalgic moment. Otherwise, to be honest, I understood what drums was. I get a different era, for what it was and what it's trying to do for that era. But I mean, like, go to Den and Co. and if you're on the floor and drums comes on, you get it then. But until then, it was kind of just like, until I saw Folsom for my birthday in 2017, heard drums for the first time live. Yeah, Detronica makes a whole lot of difference. But drums is drums, space is space. We got a Lost Sailor. Really liked how this one sounded. Honestly, MVP. Probably one of the best sounding sailors I've heard in terms of like the tones of the rigs and everybody playing. Slower pace second set jam, but it fit well with this show because they're all slow. I felt like everything was. Love the peak in it. Good peak in this one. Definitely had a foot stomper beat going on at one point. We got Wharf Rat. Honorable mention, very laid back on the opening. One of the most laid back Wharf Rat opening. I mean, it's a laid back song in general, but it's definitely very laid back. Brent had a lot more atmosphere in the lyrical part, and then he just explodes in the peak. Jerry, sound came out very pure and demanding in the flyaway part. Jam was just overall the jam was clean and simple. Even Bob um, had good parts at the end as well. Uh, and by the way, drums, space, segues into Sailor, segued in Saint of Circumstance, segued into Warfare, segued in Truckin MVP for Truckin. Uh, Not the usual typical thunderous, loud opening chords like you expect in Truckin, but uh, it was still clean and good. Wasn't the most played lights out version. Wasn't expecting it to be at this point in the show either, as far as I was listening to. But still, controlled jam. Peak was really great. I would say it's not the most best example of trucking I would want to show somebody, but it's definitely, if you listen to enough truckins and you hear this one, you'll get it. It's definitely a good version for what it was, a little bit slower down. Not as thunderous as usual for it. I can't read what I wrote in the last part of the note. Johnny Be Good, typical, closer. I mean, it's basically either this or one more Saturday night. So with this one, I actually gave MVP to Johnny Be Good. Brent pretty much saved it. Great use of Brent in this one. Just his keys fit really well in this song. I don't think I've ever heard a Johnny B. Good version where I was like, "Ow, I actually like this." It's more so just like, all right, who guessed they were gonna play that? You know. Um, and Jerry definitely played along good with Brent. As far as the 12-4, because they had it at the end of the show, if you know how does, or Dave's, how Dave's picks work, excuse me, add fillers at the bottom to round out the 3 CD. A lot of time that they fill in. It's from the next night. Get Estimate Profit and Franklin's Tower in the jam. I put MVP, very clean and simple. Everyone playing on point first part of the jam. Jerry and Brent played great off each other. Franklin's Tower, smooth transition into a great placement. Really stands out for 79 as far as the sound and tempo. I mean, it's just filler material. That's a whole nother show and part of a whole nother show in general. So I can only just comment on it. But overall, that's my first Dead review. It's the first Dave's Picks review. Wasn't too bad. A little bit easier than I thought. As far as the show tier system rating, I like how I do with Fish. It's basically just gonna be, I would either it's highly recommendable. This is a show you gotta listen to. Everybody's gotta listen to. Add it at the top of your list, or it's gonna be great show, but more like listen to these. Listen to the top shows first, then listen to this one, and then there's third spot. Not a show, has great versions of these songs, but overall as a show, I can give you a lot more shows to listen to before you feel like you have to listen to that one. Doesn't mean that it's a shitty show because it's the bottom of the rank. It just means it just wasn't a show that did much for me or anything. This show I would put in the middle. I would put as far as 79s, I wouldn't put it. There's definitely a couple 79 shows I would rather recommend over this, but in the end, I would still be like, well, if you know how 79 sounds, if you know how the Dead are and you listen to them enough to know, this is one I'd put. I listen to after some of the more desired 79 shows in my book that I think I would recommend, but it's still, for 79, a solid fucking show. A lot of great versions of stuff in this one. So that's Dave's Picks 31. That's the Dead Show review, first one on the channel. So hopefully this turns out really good. I don't know. These could just all suck, but whatever. So until the next time.